let's go to your third question here, which is about a certain wideout who was drafted quite high in leagues this year.
Yeah, this is really just for my own purposes, and I know it's helpful that other people are also attached to this player, but this is just for my own sake.
Just a few.
A few. I need it to finally be Tyreek Hill week at some point. It's got to happen at some point. Matt, he has only one 100-yard receiving game on the season, and it was forever ago. It was in opening week, literally forever ago. That's like a different time. I was a different person back then. This is the man who led the NFL in receiving yardage and receiving touchdowns last season. He was on a 2,000-yard pace deep into the year before that late ankle injury. And I know he's dealing with a foot injury of some sort of unknown severity right now, but he did play all but one snap last week. Only saw 5 targets. Achane and Jonnu Smith combined for like half the team's targets in week 9. And we're getting a Monday night stage this week. Really fun game. We're getting a Rams defense that has given up 3 different individual weeks this season in which an opposing wide receiver produced at least 130 receiving yards and multiple touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr. did it. Juwan Jennings did it. JSN just did it against the Rams. Needed overtime to do it, but he did it. I absolutely know that last year's healthy version of Tyreek Hill would have gone for like 220 and 2 scores in this game. There's no question about it. I'm just hoping Tyreek can give us like 5 for 80, because that's been the ceiling lately. And I realize some of that is related to Tyler Huntley, but it hasn't really gotten better since Tua came back. But I am still hopeful that there is an eruption game out there somewhere.
Yeah, and all 3 of those wideouts that you mentioned take resumes and, preconceived notions about who the players are or whatever. Marvin Harrison Jr., Juwan Jennings, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's not as if any of those guys were coming in tearing it up, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. back in week 2 was coming up. Oh my God, he one pass for 4 yards was the production.
Remember it was is he too slow? Is he too slow to play receiver? He's only a 17 mile an hour receiver. He can't play, can he?
Right.
That's where we were at.
Yeah, and obviously the rest of the season's been a little up and down for Marvin Harrison, but that's still the high watermark is against that Rams defense. Juwan Jennings is a guy that I've always had like a weird affinity for Juwan Jennings, but having weird affinities.
Run blocker.
Yeah, run blocker. Hey, no block, no rock, baby. I have a weird affinity for certain wide receivers. Is kind of the whole bit. That's kind of the whole thing. But this isn't a guy that was, okay, I'm normally scoring 3 touchdowns and going over 40 fantasy points. That's what he does against the damn Rams. And even JSN, fantasy analysts were getting their jokes off like after about 1/4 of that game, calling him, names and stuff like that. So, this was not a guy that was coming in here tearing it up either. He tears it up against the Rams. This should be the smash spot. And it's been funny because the production has gotten better with Tua back there. We're back to double-digit fantasy points, but just barely. We're like just over 10 fantasy points for Tyreek Hill the last couple of games. So I don't know. And even we're not even going to have a conversation about like Jalen Waddle, but obviously he's an embattled player at this point. Really the one thing working in this offense right now is dumping it down and kind of designed stuff to Devon Achane. So, and this Rams defense, I will just note, I think the secondary is still problematic. So yeah, obviously for these receivers, good stuff, but the play up front has certainly improved. Jared Verse has played really well. Byron Young's playing well. Braden Fisk dominated that game against the Seattle Seahawks in week 9. So can this offensive line in Miami protect Tua long enough for him to get the ball downfield? That is still an outstanding question as well.
Yeah, the Achane thing, which is fun in its own right.
Totally.
Like he's become obviously a must-start guy. You're certainly playing him this week, and it's reasonable to think that he has taken a chunk of the production simply away from Waddle and Hill. He's great, but man, given the number of playmakers here and the creativity that I thought was present in the design of the offense, you would expect at least 2 guys to be able to go off each week. And certainly in a matchup like that. I mean, man, the other thing is you took Tyreek Hill like 2nd, 3rd overall, but certainly with the expectation that a normal week from him is going to be 90, 100 yards, good shot at a touchdown. And there's literally only been one of those weeks. There's only been one week at the level that you considered the floor, and you haven't seen a ceiling week yet. Right. I'm hopeful that it can happen in the second half of the season. I gotta believe that the Dolphins can produce like 2 great fantasy starts in any given week, but we just haven't seen it yet.